Perik Aleph Halacha Yud. Ben Ir Shola Lekrach. If somebody who is a Ben Ir who has to read on the 14th went to a walled city that reads it on the 15th. Ben Krach Shola Leir. And somebody from a walled city who went to a unwalled city. Now we'll go down below to the Peirush. And Im Hoyadaito Lachselim Koime Bisman Kriya. If the fellow was intending to go home, either he'll be in the 14th in an unwalled city, or he would be in the 15th in the walled city in a Sakiv, and he was kept back for Chozan. He can't go back now. He reads where he is, Kim from where he came from, even though he's found elsewhere. If he had no intention of going back for Purim according to his city, only after the 15th has passed. He reads of the people who are there. Now, we find this in Eretz Yisrael a lot, because Yerushalayim is definitely someplace that had a wall around it from the days of Yeshua ben Nun. And you read it on the 15th. Other places, the reading is on the 14th. Many people travel from Yerushalayim to other places, or Yerushalayim and from other places to Yerushalayim. The Magen Mishnah cites the Mishnah in 19a that a person who lives in a city, which is the 14th, and went to a Krach, which is the 15th, or vice versa, if he's going to go back to his place, he reads like his place. And if not, he reads with him. The Gemara says, Amar Rava says, this is only when he left, he had intent to go back on the 14th, and he was kept. He did not go back. Then he reads like his place, where he originally came from, even though he's found someplace elsewhere. But if he did not intend to go back on the 14th and to his walled city, so he reads with the people there, because it says in Esther 9:19, therefore the Jews that are found in the unwalled cities, why does it say those who dwell in the unwalled cities? To tell you that even somebody who comes to an unwalled city for one day is called somebody who's dwelling there. And since an unwalled city is called somebody who is in an unwalled city on the 14th, so the same applies to somebody who's in a walled city on the 15th, reads it on the 15th. Rashi, another Rishonim, explain that Rava is only talking with regard to somebody from a walled city that went to an unwalled city. That you should not say, if he was going to go back on the night of the 15th, then he has a din like a member of the walled city. So he tells us it depends whether he's going to go back on the 14th. And he will not be, part of the 14th, he will not be in the unwalled city. But if his intention is to go back on the night of the 14th, and he was kept there that night and some of the day, and the important kriya of the Megillah, reading of the Megillah, is by day, even if he went out of the walled city before the 15th, and he got back on the 15th, before the 15th, he reads like the 14th. Why? Because when the obligation of reading the Megillah happened in the unwalled city on the 14th, he was there. And he expected to be there the night of the 14th, and some of the 14th by day. And vice versa, if somebody was from an unwalled city that went to a walled city, and he did not intend to go home on the night of the 15th, and he did go home before, then he has to read on the 14th. Therefore, according to this, when the Rambam writes, if he intends to go back at the time of the reading, he means to say in the time that they read in the place where he is found. And it's not talking about in the time of the reading of the place that he went from there. And he wants to say that this is the main thought, that depends where you are found. We're skipping the 2 pages that have more intensive thought about the Halacha. Halacha Mishnah explains that the Rambam writes when it's akev to tell us he was impeded from going forward. That it depends. Everything depends on thought, not an action. It doesn't matter what he does; it's what he thought. And from the Lashon of the Magen Mishnah, it would seem to be actively where he is. He writes, if he's going to go back, and was not impeded on the 14th. And even though it would seem that the Magen Mishnah comes to explain the Rambam, one can say he's only telling us that the time of the reading, according to the Rambam, is talking according to the place where he is found, and not the place where he went from. And certainly the Rambam is of the opinion that it has to do with intent and not with action. The Halacha Mishnah also all the time infers that at the beginning of the Magen Mishnah, it would seem that you need to think, have either thought or action in order to read like the person where you are. And he ends, it would seem that you need, rather, before you thought, either machshava or action. And at the end, you need both to be considered one of the people that are there. And at the end, he explains that it really has to do with action. And what does it mean, daitoi? When he says his thought, ve'ein daitoi, it doesn't really mean his thought. It means usually you do what you think. And he explains the Rambam, like Rashi, that if something happened and he ended up differently than what he thought. The Lechem Mishnah cites Megillah 19a. Rebbe says that Ben Kvar, who went to a city, he reads with them. And even though you can't say that the Rambam didn't mention it, like the Magen Mishnah Halacha Yud, meaning a Ben Kvar is somebody who can do it earlier than the 14th, right? But he went to a city where there's the 14th, where they have people. Rambam doesn't bring it, because in the Zman Hazeh he writes that the Kforim Hayoros are the same. We don't go earlier. If that's the case, why should he mention Yom HaKnisa in Halacha Zayin, Halacha Ches? He should have said it here as well if it's just a theoretical action, and he shouldn't have left some of it out. We'll turn the page. Rambam continues, the krach, a walled city and everything that's close to it and all that's seen with it, if there's no distance of 2,000 amma, meaning you can walk there on Shabbos, and you read it on the 15th. The Magen Mishnah states, it would seem from what the Rambam says, that if the place that's seen with the city is 2,000 amas away, it's not gekrach. And he brings from the Megillah 3b, Abishub Levi, krach and everything that's close to it, and that all that's seen with it is considered like a krach. Tell them how distant. Like from Mechamoson, which is the name of a place, Litveria, which is Alpayim Amo. And the question is in Dafko Gimel and Beis, they said Gufa, Yuda Krach, and everything that's close to it, even though we learned even if it's close, even if you can't see the city, and seen even if it's not close. And they explain Nira, that you see the walled city even though you're not close, that it's on top of mountains, so you can see it from very far away. In some Moshe Nira is when the walled city is in a valley and it's blocked by the mountains. If that would be the case, it would seem that the measurement of a mill that has nothing to do with it. If you see the walled city, you read it even if you're more than 2,000 amas away, and you read it on the 15th. So the Gemara asks the question, Vad Kamo is only talking about the situation where he's close, but he's not visible because it's blocked. And the question is, why didn't the Rambam tell us what Nira Imoy, what it's seen with it?
Just put it up.
Why did the Rambam mention it Nira Imoy, if it's Samoch. Because by Samoch, even if it isn't Nira Imoy, you read on the 15th. Because that's nothing to do with the distance, because it's close. And if it's distant, even if it's more, even if you see it, even more, I feel Nira Imoy, ain't Korah B'Tezvov. So it seems from the Rambam that if even if it's nire, you're not Korah B'Tezvov, and the Gemara seems to be saying you would read it. He brings down the Magen Mishnah that the Riv only mentions a krach and everything that's near it, and everything that's seen with it. It doesn't mention the Alpayim, Vad Kamo, Amar B'Yemyo, Ki Mechamos Natver Yemil, that it would seem that that's not referring only on not only on Samoch, it's on both statements. Rabbi Yemio said his din is like a krach, only if it's within 2,000 amas, and even on Nira. But it could be that the Rif also relied on the obviousness that Ad Kam is only going on Samuch. That if it's close, then there's a limit of 2,000 amas. But if it's seen that even beyond 2,000 amas, you would read on the 15th. So the question is, because if it's talking about distance, why does he have to mention Nira Imoy? But Agos Maimonides writes, Krach or Samuch loy. That's when Rabbi Yirmiyahu says 2,000 mil. But Nira, you also need to have only until 2,000 amas, but that's hard to say. Why? Because Maimonides also seems to infer that even Nira Imoy, if it's more than 2,000 amas away, you do not read on the 15th. The Magen Mishnah says that you have to change the text and read it. Krach and everything that's seen with it always reads on the 15th. What's close to it? Then it depends if there's 2,000 amas or not. And we'll turn the page. We are going past the Kesef Mishnah because we want to get to the Shulchan Aruch, and this is on Amud Mem Gimel. Shulchan Aruch writes, those kforim which are seen with it, even if they're not close, like they're in a mountain, or they're close, even though they can't see it because something blocks them, because they are in a valley or the walled city's in a valley, and they shouldn't be more than a mil away. The Mishnah Berurah explains that even cities which are within Alpayim Amor read on the 15th, even though they're a city. Not just Kforim, but even cities. Kforim are little towns. Even cities that are within 2,000 amas of a big city, of a walled city, read on the 15th. Voidama, and again he says in 688 that that when it says it has to be within 2,000 amas is only talking about when it's close, even though you can't see the city. But if it's visible even from a great distance, it has a din like the krach, as the Magen Mishnah explains. Thus, the wording of the Mechaba, or they're close even though they're not seen, is like they're in an emek, that they shouldn't be distant more than a mil. That he's talking about, he changes the language to make sure, ubilvad, that the 2,000 amas is talking only when it's a question of closeness. If it's in proximity, it has to be within 2,000 amas. But if it's nire, even though it's not close, he doesn't mention this question of 2,000 amas. Sharatzian says, this is Shitas Rashi and Rabbeinu Hanano. The Mishnah Berurah cites that the Rokeach says that even if you see it, it's not considered like a krach, only if it's not more than 2,000 amas. And it would seem that that's the way the Rambam is saying his statement, and so the Torah would seem to be saying so. According to this, even if it's by Samach Vein and Nire, you would read on the 15th only when it is within 2,000 amas, and even by Nire Vein and Samach, it would also be only if it's within 2,000 amos.